Larry Rami.
Larry.
Pardon, Jay Sixer.
Now,
Excuse me. The man. All right.
now I got to be honest with you. I wanted to say a little something about you before you came on, but everything I found online was horrible. And I refused to repeat it.
Yeah.
Because I said, no way. No way.
Yeah.
But welcome.
Stand up.
Yeah, I'll take the old one. All right.
Larry, go for it.
Well, yes, as my cover has been blown, I am January 6er. On January 20th of this year, I would get the call from my attorney, and they would state that I am going to be released from federal custody because of the pardon of Donald Trump, along with 1,500 plus of my brothers and sisters that were exercising the First Amendment on a mostly peaceful protest that got slightly out of hand. And that brings me to this moment. How do you tell a story to a bunch of people when the story is actually still being written? It's still being told. This very moment, me looking at all you guys, the story is still being written. And so you take it one day at a time. It was just over 2 months ago where, I thought I would be a convicted felon for the rest of my life, that I was going to spend another several years in prison. I mean, imagine what Enrique Tarrios thought sitting in a dark cell with a 22-year sentence looming over his head, and Kamala Harris in the race to pitch switch Joe Biden with a usurpation of their own primary. You panic. I mean, Ethan Nordine, 18 years, a preteen daughter growing up without her dad every day. He would face that. Mason Corson, several years left in prison until January 20th. So the story is now being told through our lens, our camera, our voice, our truths, because for several years, America listened to this false narrative of this insurrection happened, that they tried to overthrow the government, all a farce by our own Department of Justice to frame a president and his supporters from never thinking in the future of doing that again. Well, guess what? Here we are, and here the MAGA movement lives on. And you got to take a moment to give some credit where credit is due. The power of the left-wing media and the propaganda that it spews is so powerful. I mean, there's still people to this day, mostly very few and far between, thankfully, that actually believe Donald Trump colluded with Russia to win the first presidency. They believe this. It's come out, even their own prosecutors, to determine, oh, this didn't happen. And so the fact on November 5th, the America showed up beyond conservatives like you, beyond people that are in tune to elections, in tune to in politics, beyond that, showed up on November 5th and said, we had enough. We had enough, and this momentum is still being carried forward. So what we went through, no matter what they say online about us, it doesn't happen to your worst enemy in the U.S. prison system. And what I mean by that is pedophiles and murderers and actual terrorists were treated better than us. I was moved from 14 different facilities in 16 months all over the United States, from Miami to Oklahoma to Virginia to Pennsylvania to D.C., back to Virginia, back to Pennsylvania, all just to break me down and get me to sign a plea, which they wanted me to serve 15 years in prison. Now, this is not exclusive to me. This is a process that the Bureau of Prisons uses every day, and it comes at the expense of your tax dollars. It costs $2,000 to $10,000 for the Bureau of Prisons and the federal marshals to move an inmate from facility to facility. You're paying for that. Well, I don't remember ever voting on that. It is only to help U.S. prosecutors and district attorneys win cases, to break the person down going to court so they're more likely to sign a plea that favors the prosecutor and the Department of Justice. And so the J6ers were put through the ringer, the worst of the worst. We were labeled as domestic terrorists while we served our prison sentence. In the federal facility I was at, I was labeled as a domestic terrorist. I had the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, monitoring my fiance's social media. My fiance was not at January 6th. They were monitoring her social media and having me call her from inside the facility and tell her to remove posts that were pro-Trump and anti-Biden. This was probably the most unconstitutional, egregious thing I've seen happen. but we were denied medical care. We were denied religious services. We were put in the solitary confinement for months on end simply for refusing the vax, in some cases just because they didn't like us. So what these men and women went through for one day after we watched our country burn to the ground during the George Floyd riots, to impunity, to nothing. The same prosecutor in Washington, D.C., Matthew Graves, who fortunately resigned, he went after us, our families. He sent the FBI and all the resources and assets at not just the J6ers, their family members too. And this is the same prosecutor and district attorney from D.C. that gave a pro-Palestinian protester 48 hours community service for punching a female Capitol Police officer in the face. But he not only went after us and sought and even attempted to appeal. 22 years for Enrique Tarrio, 22 years for 18 years for Ethan Nordine and Zachary Real and Dominic Bizzola. That wasn't enough for the prosecutor. They wanted more. They were going to appeal it. But we're not going to be victims. None of us. None of us. We're not going to sit up here and plead that feel sorry for us, because it's time to take action. On November 5th, God gave us a chance. He gave us a chance in Butner, PA, when he turned Donald Trump's head. That was God intervening in our affairs, but God is not going to bail us out. He's going to leave it to us. He's going to give us a chance to do it ourselves. And on November 5th, we showed up. But ladies and gentlemen, if we do not show up again in the primaries, and we do not show up again in the midterms, then this chance God gave us and gave Americans will all be for nothing. So I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, but we need to activate ourselves across the board through our country from coast to coast and continue to close the gap from this Marxist communist agenda that is plaguing our nation. And that is what the J6ers represent. They were the ones that showed up, whose top had popped, and they weren't taking it anymore. And for better or for worse, whether you agree or disagree, it doesn't change the fact that we believe in our hearts that we were right. And we still continue to do that. So we're going to do that with our actions. We're going to do that moving forward. And it's not going to stop. So please get behind us. And please, talk to us and give us the opportunity, as this Tuesday night is doing, for us to tell our side of the story. Because for 4 years we were silenced in prison. Our First Amendment rights were stripped. And it's only now, because of Donald J. Trump, that we can tell this story. So I just snuck all in. I was actually only told to introduce Enrique. I wasn't. Actually, bartender, if you can give me a Maker's Mark neat on Enrique's tab, that would be great. Maker's Mark, thank you. I'm at that table. So the next speaker, I got to know incarcerated in a D.C. jail and Virginia jail, going to court, facing destiny, most likely going to prison forever. He defines time. In South Florida, if you grow up in South Florida, anywhere near it, there's two types of time. There's time that we all live in, and then there's Cuban time, which is like 3 hours at least, not on time in any direction. And by defying time, I mean that for his own planned insurrection, air quotes implying, he didn't even have the audacity to show up. I mean, he took Cuban time to a whole new level. He just didn't even come. And he was sentenced to 22 years in prison for not even showing up to his own insurrection. Ladies and gentlemen, Enrique Tarrio, now pardoned by Donald Trump. Come on up here, buddy.